This is a phenomenal bike ride, and I can tell you he's so casual. This is his first time he's ever biked the full 112 miles here in Hawaii. He's never been up to the turn in Harvey. He's certainly been up there today. Doesn't he look...
'Cause I come from the land down under, women glow and men plunder. Get you the thunder. You better run, you better take cover and have breakfast with Bob.
And Pacho, man, welcome everybody to day 3 of Breakfast with Bob, St. George edition. My name is Bob Babbitt. We're brought to you by Master Spa, Zion's Bank, Quintana Roo's, Forum Smart Swim Goggles, Clash Endurance, Premium Plus Sports, and of course our Challenged Athletes Foundation. There's only one triathlete on the planet who has won 4 Ironman races, holds the Ironman course record, was an Olympic rower, and now was on the team that just won Paris-Roubaix. Mr. Cameron Wurf joins us. Yeah, how you doing, Cam the man?
Thanks, Bob. It's trying to do new things. It's for that intro. It just makes me feel so special every time I'm on your show, going back over things. So, yeah, that's a really special one to add to it. The Roubaix was one of my teammates, a Russian, Pavel Sivakov. He said to me the other day that he felt that it was probably one of the bigger moments of my career. Asked me if it was, and I said probably the biggest. To be honest,
no question.
I've had obviously some personal success and everything else in other sports and cycling, but to be a part of that team, that race, and the way it panned out was just pretty amazing to be a part of, and also completely unexpected. I wasn't scheduled to race the event, and
You weren't scheduled to race?
No, not at all. I got told 3 days before. Yeah. So.
And you probably didn't think that you'd be leading over to cobbles.
Gosh, no. I mean, the team kind of expected that I'd be there at the start to control the race and make sure that we had our other 6 guys in the right position.
Yes.
When the crap hits the fan, so to speak, when you get towards those first sectors, and but we did the recon, on the Thursday, and I was surprised. I actually felt quite comfortable on the cobbles, and technology's come a long way. The tubeless tires, etc., wider tires. The bikes. It was quite a different experience to what I'd ridden on cobbles at different races in the past, and. So I was optimistic I could maybe do a little more than that, and then of course the race panned out the way it did, and we were at the front and on the front foot, and serving it to them. So it was pretty incredible.
Seeing a triathlete leading on the cobbles was the whole world just exploded. It was so cool.
Yeah, it gave me goosebumps. I mean, to be honest, it felt like leading in Kona. Yeah, it was actually the memory I had when we hit that. It was the second sector, particularly when the dust had settled, so to speak, after the first sector where it was still a bit frantic. We hit the second sector and I was on the front, and I was just like, wow. Like, you watch TV and you talk about, like, when you watch Roubaix, the first point of the race is who's going to lead onto the cobbles, and it was me, and everyone had been saying when they found out I was doing it, just try to get in the early breakaway, and it's safer up there. And I was like, oh yeah, sure, on this team, the best team, no one lets us go. But there we were, 50 riders, we'd split the field in half, and I'm leading the race. And, it was just a really magical moment, and, something pretty special to be a part of.
Well, and then when Dylan wins the whole thing. It's one thing to be leading at that point, but to actually win it.
Well, that was the thing. I mean, I noticed it was a hard start. I was chasing a lot of things, and I was suffering. I was really on the limit in the first 30, 40K because everyone was very attacking, and we were the favourites, so everyone was, playing off us, and I had to keep reacting. I couldn't really attack myself. I was always chasing something, and I heard on the radio from Service Carnarvon, our director, he said, guys, it's really hard at the back. There's guys really struggling, and I was like, okay, well, that's good because I've been chasing everything and I'm at the front and I'm suffering, but at least at the back they're feeling the same. And next thing we sort of came over a roller and down, and there was a bit of breeze. Not a lot, but just enough. And next thing from the car, guys, as the race is splitting, and all of us, all 7 of us were right there, the whole team. And so obviously we just started rotating, and and I hadn't seen Van der Poel, hadn't seen Wout van Aert the whole race, so I knew they were behind, because when you chase an attack and the bunch kind of swarms, you get a bit bunch back 50, 60 riders, and I never saw them. And so I knew that when it split, I knew they were back there. So we just went for it. But then it's a 250k race, your 60k race. So you need to, save the energy of your leaders. And we took the decision to maintain a gap, more to just buy us some time on Wout van Aert and Van der Poel and Kung when they would eventually want to try to come across, so that if our guys had problems on the cobbles, they had that buffer to deal with it. And sure enough, we hit the first section, Filippo Ganna punctured. So we were able to control the pace, get him back into the front. And then not long after that, Dylan had a bike problem, but he was able to then just jump in with the group with Van der Poel and Van Aert and was very quickly back at the front of the race, because there was a point where it was coming back together. So, and they were sort of the two significant things that went wrong for us. But having that buffer that we'd established earlier in the race, when no one expected it, it just meant that we could deal with those. Whereas Van Aert, and those guys, when they had their issues, they were having to come from behind all the time and keep chasing. So, yeah, it just worked out so special. But the funny thing was, we were very confident we'd race Wednesday. The Brabantse Pijl and Magnus Shepard, a young American, had won, and we'd really bossed that race. And that day, we were very confident. I lined up first. Like, I was on the start line 15 minutes before anyone, because I knew I'd have to control the race. And I made sort of the whole field ride past us. And when the race started, normally you get all these flurry of attacks, and no one would move. And I pointed at a couple of guys, told them to go, so they attacked, and then it was only two. So then I looked at another guy, sent him up the road, and no one else would move. It was like they were a bit intimidated by the team. So for Roubaix, I thought, bugger it. It's the biggest one-day race of them all. I'm going to get on that start line before anyone. So I lined up right on the front. And Philippe Gilbert rolled up beside me. He said, "You're here early." I said, "Yeah, I mean, if anyone wants to win this thing, they've got to come through us,
Exactly.
And the same thing happened at the start. Initially, no one wanted to move. And I was like, come on, guys, start attacking. Let's start the race. And, of course, when it started, it was on. It was on. But we had a real confidence about us. And, the guys were looking at me when I left the bus early, thinking, "Where the hell is Cameron going? Like, we've still got 15 minutes."
He's going for a run.
Exactly, going for a warm-up swim. But I just wanted to. I took my job very seriously and my opportunity very seriously. You realise that, especially as you get older, you get less these big moments, the big days. When the team asked me if I wanted to do it, I said, I love the big days. The opportunity to do the Vuelta, I feel like I really rose to the occasion.
You did.
I was able to, do a couple of Ironmans last year. I was able to perform at the front. I love the big occasion. And I said, you just don't want to miss out on making the most of that. And obviously doing Roubaix and then few things transpiring, meaning I'd be free. Basically, the fact that I didn't get called in for the Giro.
I thought you'd be racing the Giro.
Well, I'm always on standby. You never know. And when it became apparent a week ago that I wouldn't need to be here, I was like, wow, okay, so St. George is a possibility. And you think, don't be stupid. You haven't prepared. All these guys have been training for months or years, really, with COVID, waiting for the World Championship to finally happen. But I said to myself, it's a bit like Roubaix, like you don't get many of these days. You don't get many of these big moments. And if you're capable of being there, and it was actually Fallon, she said to me that you wanted to be the big man that was doing both sports at the highest level. You get your ass on that plane and go to that race. So I've got a very supportive wife. She wants me to get the crap kicked out of me on Saturday, or she believes I can do well. But anyway, we're here and we'll see what we can do.
Well, and you've been on this course before for the 70.3.
Yep.
This is different and longer, obviously.
Yep.
And, for you, being a tough bike course, this is going to be a strong person's race.
Yeah, I did. I was here in 17, I think it was. I came, I think I was in LA, and I saw it was on, and I struggled that day. Yeah. I can't remember how or why or what, but anyway, I'm just not probably very good at halves. And Alistair Brownlee won. I do remember that. That's about all I remember. And anyway, but looking at the course profile here, you get a lot of courses that are hard, like Mallorca, for example, at the end of last year, but it was actually hard at the beginning, which, it doesn't make such a difference. Obviously everyone's pretty fresh and everyone can deal with difficulties at the start. The difference, or what stands out with this course, and I haven't done any recon yet, obviously, but just looking at the profile, is it looks harder later in the race.
It is.
Which really changes a lot. It's like, in Kona, the times when I've been able to establish a a gap. It's been when the wind's blown, and you get the harder part of the race, back to Kauai High, etc., with the wind, and you can actually really make a difference when people are already a bit fatigued.
Yes.
So, that gives me, I'm excited to see what happens, because we just don't generally get races where it is like that, where it is hard towards the finish of the bike leg, and then obviously onto a pretty brutal run. I think, it's going to be a pretty scrappy Saturday afternoon for everyone, in the field.
And even without, Jan isn't here and Patrick isn't here, but you've got, and Joe Skipper isn't here, but you've still got Alistair Brownlee, you got Gustav, you've got Christian, Lionel, Sebastian.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, because you guys sort of, a lot of times swim sort of together. You and Lionel and Sebastian and maybe Sam.
Yeah.
That's some powerhouse cyclists right there.
I've never met Sam personally. So I'm excited to first meet him and obviously compete with him. And,
yes.
He's been great for the sport, great energy, brought a great energy to the sport, which is fantastic. And but we don't have Jan and Patrick, obviously Joe, a couple of others, but to be honest, I don't think that changes. It doesn't change the top end.
No.
I know we've from what we've seen of Jan in the last couple of years and Patrick, they're not head and shoulders above the rest of the field. I mean, we saw last year a number of events. I guess myself, performance. Obviously Lionel very consistent. Gustav, obviously Christian. Phenomenal. Joe Skipper as well. All around a pretty, and obviously Jan. With his event that he had. I think it obviously takes out the depth. There's two guys that aren't going to be in the mix, but I definitely never saw them as two guys that would be, head and shoulders above anyone. So I don't think it'll change the dynamic of the race at all. It's obviously a shame for the fans that they're not here, and a shame for Germany, but, Sebi's our favourite one anyway, our favourite German. So if we ever want a German to win, we always prefer to see Sebi win than either of those two. No offence to them, but yeah.
And speaking of Sebi, each sport that you've done, there's a different hurt level, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember you telling me a number of years ago when you were at Challenge Roth, that's when you found out there was a different hurt level in triathlon, because you were running along, and I think it was both Sebastian, both Jesse went by.
Yeah.
And your thought was, neither of those guys are going to finish. They look like crap.
Yeah, I was really blown away, because I guess people have been into me about, you got to ride easier to run better and blah, blah, blah. And, I then started seeing these guys, and also in Kona, that in 18.
Right.
Where I did lead quite a significant part of the race and had them come past me later in the race again. So when you've got that level of fatigue again,
Yes.
I remember Bart Arnott's, Patrick just obviously zigging by, looked phenomenal, but I remember Bart, and I remember David McNamee, and I remember Braden Curry, and these guys really struggling, and I was thinking, gosh, you pansy, and obviously it was the same thing that happened in Roth with Sebastian, when he came past, and I was, it was a really defining moment for me to learn to harden up a little, and learn that the marathon isn't meant to be just a bit of a cruise or a survival. You've actually got to attack it now, and these guys are racing the run, which is really exciting for the sport, and potentially the increase in the level of the bike, which I guess has had a bit of a effect by myself. We haven't obviously seen changes in the run speed,
right? But
these guys are now able to ride quicker, and they're still running the same pace. They're just working much harder to do it, and it's exciting for the sport.
When I look at your progression, in terms of Ironman, just your run times just keep going down and down and down, and it's funny because it's hard, especially when you're in your 30s, to become that much of a better runner.
Yeah.
Right? But you ran 255 in Kona in 2019, and that was after winning Italy just a few weeks before.
Yeah.
What has, in terms of the transformation of your running, how's that happened?
Well, I guess the beauty is I didn't start running until about 2017.
So you're fresh.
Yeah, so you're gonna have an improvement curve, and that's, I think people really struggle to actually grasp that, because since I've come into the sport, I've been sort of, I guess, thrust into the top end of it.
Right.
So you just expected that you've come from those backgrounds, and people don't. I really didn't do any running, really,
Ever.
or any swimming, prior to that, and both being, technical based, and then obviously sort of disciplines that take years to develop the motor patterns to be able to do properly. I'm fortunate that even at an older age, at 38, I'm still seeing significant improvements in both my swimming and running. And you think, as you get older, you think, oh, you're kidding yourself, and how long can you really do this? And so I thought, I wonder what the marathon, and the Nike guys have always been on to me about running a marathon, trying to do a good marathon, just a flat marathon.
Yeah.
What's the world record for a 60-year-old? And it's something like 2:23.
Right.
And so you think, well, yeah, there's no reason why I can't continue to improve my running, at least for the foreseeable future, the next, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, whatever it happens to be. I guess if I wanted to put a number on, where I could potentially get to the end of my career and still be at my best, it would be 45.
Right.
That's obviously because Tom Brady's come up with the same number, and we share the same birthday, so he's a bit of a hero. But yeah, that's the big thing with my running. I should improve because I just haven't done much of it.
Well, and if you look at 2021, when you ran 2:53 at Majorca and 2:49 when you won Copenhagen, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing. On very limited running preparation, it means my foundation is sort of much better than it was in the past. And,
right.
It's exciting, ideally, if I can obviously do well on the weekend. I've got to qualify for Kona again first. I don't want to think too far ahead, but, I definitely would like to, over the summer, be able to, work on my running and go out and try and do quite a quick marathon in an Ironman as well. And I feel like I'm at that, now that I've sort of moved that base sort of around the 250, high 240s, low 250s, on an average day, I feel like I can now push into the lower 240s on a really good day, and that's exciting. So
when you look at this course, it's interesting because I was talking to David McNamee yesterday, and it's a tough course. Mm-hmm. And he goes, yeah, it's a tough course, but he goes, you're going to have multiple people running 230s, and you're going to have multiple people under 8 hours. And I'm going, well, that's a big ask, but it seems like the level keeps going up.
Yeah, absolutely. The dynamic obviously is different too. We've seen a bit of an evolution of bigger groups.
Right.
People riding together and then getting off and running quick. And
that's going to be hard here to ride together.
Exactly, and be protected. And I mean that would be what will be fascinating about that, because you'll either have an option where unless you're, obviously just head and shoulders above the rest of the sport, which I don't see happening, you're going to have people either having to save some energy, and on a course that's slow, the bike course that's slow, that means much bigger gaps, so you're fresher to run. Or you're going to obviously have people that are going to play their cards on the bike and try and put themselves in a position to try and hang on and maybe bank on the fact that the run course is going to be harder than people expect, especially after that bike leg.
Yes.
And it might be a bit more scrappy than what David is sort of anticipating. But the heat will be another factor. But
the wind. There's been some wind the last few days.
Yeah, I mean, obviously on the bike that would be the big thing. But yeah, I think you'll find the dynamic will really impact heavily. I mean, you could get a guy you think is going to run a 230 running a 250 and winning. We really don't know, because we really don't know how much impact the bike's going to have and where that's going to put different guys. And yeah, it's actually quite exciting to see.
Because there's no track record. Nobody's done.
No.
Yeah, the last time they had a full here was like 2012, and I'm sure the course is a little different. So.
I mean, you can't rule out the Hoff, can you? I mean,
no.
He won then. I mean, he won last week, and
he won, and I think he was first and fourth at this race when it was back on the full.
Yeah. So it's going
to be great.
It's going to be great.
And Alistair Brownlee's here and all that stuff.
To me, Alistair looks pretty good. I mean, you're talking about a 2-time Olympic champion. I've said in the past how much of a fan I am of his. I mean, that's next level, totally. to have done what he's done. The fact that he's here, the fact that he's had the issues he's had last number of years. And, yeah, he's obviously been very good here in the half distance. And I would expect that he would be probably the favourite, to be honest. Certainly much more than the Norwegian guys.
More than the Norwegian guys?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Alistair's definitely got a much more resilient and, longer track record. And he's a pretty phenomenal competitor, when he sets his mind to something. He looks great, and he's had a lot of time out as well, and think freshness and, all that. I think he's the one that, everyone will be watching for quite a bit on Saturday.
So when I look at the ultimate Cam Wurf race, I look at Ironman Italy in 2019, because that was, 46:39 swim, 4:09, and then following up with a 2:45. Do you look at that as, okay, that was the perfect race?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I swam at the front group. It was a wetsuit. We had, Lucas Voigt was there. He was off solo. But, I was with Tim Don and a bunch of other really good swimmers. And then obviously got to Lucas pretty quick on the bike and established myself and was able to then, manage everything and run a really good run. I was able to start steady and build through it. And I actually got the run course record that day as well.
Yes, you did.
And the only run course record I've still got. But, it was pretty cool because it was only a few days before that I'd found out Fallon was pregnant. So it was nice to go and execute something like that when you're going to be a parent, and had that on my mind. And, that was a great race. So I certainly haven't had Copenhagen, to be honest, last year was pretty good.
Yes.
I mean, the swim was a bit scrappy, but I'd had the COVID vaccine a couple of days before. So
2:49 marathon.
Yeah, but
4:02.
Yeah, but that was a bit different because I sort of was waiting for Lionel on the run because I kind of wanted a bit of a race, but he sort of never really got close enough, and then he got to within a minute and a half or so, and then but there was only 5K to go or 6K to go, so then I just did my attack.
So you were sort of slowing down, waiting for
Lionel?
Lionel?
Well, I mean, obviously we just had the Olympics, I watched Elliot, who, I've got the same coaching group, and how he kicked away, at the end. I thought, how cool is that? So when I got in the position in the race where I was able to look after myself, control myself, save some energy, I thought, right, I'll let him come and then see if I've got that kick late in the race just to
test yourself.
Just to test yourself. How strong are you really? It's easier to sort of go hard at the start or in the middle, but, can you do it in the last 10K? And so, I was sort of waiting, thinking he'd get close. But as I said, 5K to go, he was still over a minute back and ended up winning by nearly 5 minutes.
Yes.
So obviously kicked away quite well. But that was a special race. And obviously, unfortunately, then with Kona being cancelled, obviously I didn't train again until, I just showed up to Mallorca. I went back racing on the bike. I didn't do any swimming or running for the next couple of months. And, I struggled that day. But, I think that where I was at in Copenhagen was where I wanted to be.
Yes.
And I'm excited, through the course of this year to try and see how fast I can go again.
How much running have you been doing?
Well, the last 10 days I've done a little bit. Yeah, enough. I've done a couple of long runs. I had a great camp in LA, as I always do. Did a lot of volume. I actually went to Portland and we did some testing and had a look at where I was at in different zones. And what that was actually quite helpful because, not surprisingly, but it basically showed I was very very efficient at around 4 minute pace, which would indicate the marathon times I've run. Very inefficient at like 5 minute pace, and obviously above 3 minute pace, going fast. So we've actually been able to sort of change the training a bit because that high end stuff you can't do a lot of it. So adding a few sessions here and there with some sort of sharper stuff, but then actually being confident to go out and do much more easy stuff, knowing that that's actually something I need to work on. So, in the first couple of months of the season, when I've been racing the bike, finding 20, 30 minutes to do a little, speed session or a little easy jog hasn't been too difficult, just to sort of keep moving and psychologically, at least in my own mind, telling myself that I'm continuing to improve. The proof will be in the pudding on Saturday, though, in the back half of that run, if I've been able to maintain my level or even stay close to that. But me, I'm always optimistic. As Mike Riley says, it's your attitude. It's the only thing you got out there to control. And I'll certainly take a positive mindset into the race.
Awesome. Well, we'd love to see you coming down this finish chute. Now, what do you have to finish to qualify for Kona?
Wow, they've got a lot of slots now.
Oh, good.
So, God,
you better get one.
A lot of confidence in me then. I think there's eight slots, so there's plenty of slots. No, I mean, it's a championship. As I said at the start, getting to do something like Roubaix just was a really good kick in the backside, a reminder of how special those big moments are, and how special it is to be a part of them at the front.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to go out there and try and win it. I'm certainly not going to defend myself to try and qualify for Kona. I mean,
No.
I don't race like that.
No.
So yeah, I'm here. You know,
If you're
I'm
here,
healthy.
you're here to win.
You know, I flew. You know, the whole family's here. You know, my son, the dog, my wife, obviously. So, you know, yeah, we're here to get into it, and
Love it.
Yeah, and I don't think I need to be afraid of anything. You know,
You never do.
I think if I can, get through the sporting career I have, you know, I watched a great documentary on the way over, Michael Bisping, the UFC fighter, and it talked when he got his title shot, he got 2 weeks notice, and he was actually filming a movie, a XXX movie with Vin Diesel, and so he wasn't even training and to fight Luke Rockhold, and I didn't realize any of this, and he rang his coach and said, look, I've finally got a title shot, but I'm here filming a movie, you know.
What do I do?
What do I do? And anyway, the coach said, you've been training for this fight your whole life, you know, don't be afraid. And sure enough, he obviously went on and won the fight, you know, and won the title, and it was his first time winning the title. And it was a great story, and great for me to watch that at that moment. We're obviously not getting in an octagon or anything here, but
Swim could be that way.
it could be a bit rough, but it just was a good reminder that, you know, come on, Wurf, you've been swimming, you've been riding your bike, you've been rowing, you've been on water, you've been running around, you know, grew up on an island, you know, with Tim Reed, you know, since I was a kid. Just go out there and get stuck in. You know, you've done the work, and trust your instincts, and trust those years of preparation. So yeah, I'm excited.
Love it. Cam Wurf, everybody, has been our guest. Poncho Man, take us out.
'Cause I come from the land down under. Yeah, yeah. Women glow and men plunder. But can't you hear the thunder? You better run, you better take cover. You know what I'm saying now. You better run, you better take cover. And have breakfast with Bob.
And Poncho Man, thanks everybody. Day 3, what a great start. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.